Hello everybody, my name is Marcell and this is the Rant-A-Way Podcast where we don't just talk about our favorite things, we rant away about them. I've got my co-host with me here today, Money Green. Money Green, what's up?
What's going on, man? What's going on, people? How y'all doing? How's everybody doing? How you doing, Star?
Doing pretty good. I bought a new computer, so I've been fiddling with transferring files, which I forget how tedious it is, but also kind of fun.
So you bought it? You bought it yesterday? We thought you was just going to look, because my mother was like, "There's no way he parked all the way down in the thingamajig and he's gonna walk it all the way back." I was like, "No, I think he's just going to look."
Yeah, I went yesterday to look, and then I went down today to go buy it, and then after you had told me that you were out, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go do that then while he's out. I think I should be back before then. So yeah, I've been sitting here for about 2 hours. I've been reviewing the stream from like last week. I want to say I did a Naruto tier list, which ended up being like a 4-hour stream. Not my intention, but it ended up being that long, so I'm still kind of chewing through that. I'm setting up the new computer. I was transferring the files from my grandfather's event from the SD card onto the hard drive, getting ready for that, and now here we are with this. So it's like the last thing I need, so when I go to work tonight, I have like just 12 hours of content easily to get me through 8 hours of the shift.
Oh yeah, you'll breeze right through with all the stuff, all the content you got to thingamajiggy. I got a question for the tier list though.
Okay.
Or is it that I must watch it to find out?
Not really. I mean, I took a snapshot of it and put it in the general Discord. So to anyone who wasn't able to see it, it's there.
Okay, so I need to know where Shippuden opening 7 came in, and where opening 6 came in.
Opening 6 the one that's like, I realize the screaming pain?
Yep.
Okay, and then opening 7 is the one where he fights pain. I think we put those ones on either it's Hokage or it's Jonin. That one, that tier list system thing that I was doing only had Academy, Genin, Chunin, Jonin, and Hokage. The one that we were doing last week was for all the Naruto endings. So for that one, I did Genin, Chunin, Jonin, Sanin, and Hokage. But opening 6 and 7 did rank very highly.
Okay, good.
On the opening tier list.
7 is my favorite. 6 is probably my second favorite.
Yeah,
and then I like
legit.
the other one. I like the other one. I like the other one. I don't know what number it is, but it's the one where I think Guy, Kakashi, and Naruto are gonna fight Obito. And at the end, it's Guy looking over, it's Kakashi looking straight. And
I know which one you're talking about.
Running.
Opening 14.
You know the one?
Yeah, that's opening 14.
Yeah,
I think we put that one at a Jonin. I think either it was a Jonin or a Chunin, but we all said that it reminded us of James Bond. So we didn't put it low. I remember that much. We didn't rank it low because opening 14 is pretty legit. Yeah.
All right, so all right. I just had to make sure because I know 7 is my favorite. Me and Christopher would be like, yeah, I don't know if I don't feel like there's another one better, but a lot of them are good. But those that's mine.
Yeah, Shippuden had a lot of good openings.
They did. That's one that I don't mind that they changed it so much. But yeah, no, I like some of those, but 6 and 7. They just went with the time, you know what I mean? Like for what was going on in the series at the time.
Yeah.
And then, the way it hits, because 7 is Jiraiya up there right in the thingamajiggy in the beginning, and then, Naruto and thing, and then the whole attack on the village, and then, 6 with Sasuke and Itachi and all of them. Yeah, no, I like those. They went with the themes too, so.
Yeah, that was when Naruto finally put their foot on the gas and was like, all right, let's start chewing up the manga content, because I know seasons 2 or opening 2, 3, and 4 were majority filler, and then it gets into the Hidan and Kakuzu on the move and stuff like that. But I didn't watch Naruto at that point. I watched the first season and then I stopped, and then I started playing the Storm Q games, and then I got back into it at episode 167, which just happened to be the Naruto versus Pain fight. So definitely a good place to start if you're playing the games. And then from there, from 167 all the way to 500, I was on board. So I remembered most of them, forgot a few of them in between that I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, I remember that one. Yeah, let's go in Genin. That one wasn't really all that hot. But yeah, the endings were definitely varied because there's 55 of them, because we also did Naruto part 1 as well. So there was a lot of pictures to move around, and I think at one point the web page just kind of froze. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I restart this, do I lose all of my, placings? But thankfully it didn't. So it's a pretty fun stream. I'm doing Boruto this week, hopefully, if I have time. It's gonna be the Boruto openings and the endings. So I'm interested in that one because I think I finished Boruto 2 years ago. The anime hasn't come back yet. The manga's still going on, and I know there's people out there that just don't like it, but I don't know. I've had some people that just go like, man, maybe I will give it a look-see and see what happens. So who knows? Maybe the opening and endings can do that for someone. But if not, I gotta go back down memory lane and see if it's as good as I remember.
Yeah, possibly. You've been on that show for a while, so
yeah.
But
so with all of that,
let's jump into what it's about. So, it's movie time. It's movie. So we went seeing all the summer blockbusters, I believe. The 3 big ones. I don't know if there's another one. I don't think there's another one coming in August, but the biggest ones that were advertised, we seen Superman, we seen Jurassic World, we seen Fantastic Four. So how do you want to tackle this? You want to tackle this in order? I know you.
We can do it in order.
Starting first with the one that came out first, Jurassic World. Jurassic World Rebirth, right?
Yep, Jurassic World Rebirth. I had a friend that said Jurassic Park Reborn. I was like, wow. So close yet so far.
So how you feeling about it?
All right, so even after I think it's been like almost 20, it's been 25 days I think since the movie came out. On the surface I thought it was great. I have a video probably before this one, once it goes uploaded, talking about Jurassic World and what I liked from it and what I would like to have seen. So if you're interested in that, go watch that. That's all I'm going to say. I would give that movie a 9 out of 10. Money, what'd you think about it?
Oh, that's fun. Good job with the plug. Yeah, that works now. Because originally we recorded this, and then we jumped into it a bit.
Yeah, because I was still working on it at the time. I recorded the footage for it that same day. I'm like, man. But hey, at least I got one thing done that day. But I did feel kind of bad that we lost our 30-minute, just perfect sandwich.
So anybody who doesn't know, whoever's listening to this one, we can confirm there was a 35 minute. It was a 35-minute version of this episode, kinda, but it's gone. But we definitely.
I don't even know if it was even recording at this point. I'm just gonna gaslight myself.
But we definitely did it. So yeah, so this is kind of like, this is the reshoot and add on.
The redux.
But he's got the video on now for his deeper opinions on Jurassic World Rebirth. Me, I keep it short and simple because I don't really have much to say about the movie. To me, it was just fine. I'm gonna stay away from my trademark and saying it was just a movie.
Crazy.
But it was fine. It to me. I was talking to somebody else, and I think they pretty much said the same. Like it was like, yeah, just it feels like a summer blockbuster, and I'm like, yeah, it just feels like one of those movies, like like it's loud, it has action in it, it has thing. You're not really thinking too much about it, this and that and whatever. But it's a fine movie. It doesn't. I think you've seen it 3 times already.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't make me want to go see it again. I'm not anxiously waiting on it or anything like that. Excuse me, but I thought it was a good one. I thought it's like passable. So to me, what did I give it coming out of the theater? Don't lie now.
I think you and your mom gave it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah, so I stick with that. Yeah, 6, because it's fine. It's a movie you could watch. You don't really have to, know any lore, or it's not connected to the previous movie. So if you haven't seen the previous movies, you don't have to do your homework and go back and watch those and this and that and whatever. It's fine just watching it on its own, and it's fine sit there and you this and that and whatever. Some people said they wish that they had more dinosaurs in it. Yeah, so as I think about that movie, nothing really.
That's a little weird because I would say that there was a good ratio of dinosaurs to humans in that movie, but when we did get dinosaurs in Fallen Kingdom and Dominion, which there was a lot of dinosaurs in both of those movies, like people didn't like them. I don't know. It's like
Was
what?
Dominion was the last one, right? The one before
Yes,
this one.
Dominion was the last one. I know people, dunk on the whole locust plot, but like there were gigantic bugs in the Mesozoic era, so I can believe in that being a big focal point to them just being like the big attraction in the movie. But yeah, there's a good handful of dinosaurs in like all of the Jurassic Park movies. So I just kind of don't know like what do you want from it if that's not the case? Because if we're looking at like just Jurassic Park, right? There's only like 4 minutes of like the CGI dinosaurs or like at all on the movie. Like the amount of dinosaurs in Jurassic Park is probably the amount of what we saw in Rebirth, except one hits harder than the other, I guess, for some people. But like, if you don't count the T-Rex scene, there's the Gallimimuses, the Velociraptor kitchen scene, the Dilophosaurus killing Nedry, and the Triceratops being sick. And mind you, now this movie, the Jurassic Park 1, is like 2 hours and 4 minutes long. So there's not a lot of dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, like the first movie. But because of like obviously the writing and the characters and everything else, puffing it up, it does make the impact of their screen time feel substantial. But I felt that they also felt substantial on Rebirth's front as well. I think that each setup was pretty good. The Quetzalcoatl Atlas was a pretty cool scene. The Titanosaurs was a beautiful moment. I wanted a bit more from the Mosasaurus scene, but that kind of gets into like character reasons as to why that is, and just like the whole Neo Jurassic World aspect, which I really like. But again, I talk more about that in the other videos. So like if you're interested in like this 25-day-old movie, probably 32 by the time this podcast released, go watch that, because I thought Rebirth was a pretty good rebirth. But hey, you said 6 out of 10, so I ain't gonna argue with that. But for me, I gave it a 9 out of 10. If we're going by numerical values, I gave it 3 points higher.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I know you loved that movie, loved the movie, and like I said, I didn't feel like it was bad, but yeah, no, I thought it was okay. Me personally, like it's all right.
Yeah, I thought it was great, and Muddy thought it was not so super. But speaking of super,
good segue. So the next movie was Superman. Big Blue finally back on the big screen again. Bright blue this time, not dark blue, not mopey, not broody, but the real Superman, good Superman. I was gonna say no shots, but I mean, I think it's well established by now that I hate Zack Snyder's take on the movies or whatever. So no need for me to mince words. What'd you think about Superman?
How'd you like that? I loved it. It was so optimistic. It was so hopeful. It was so Superman. I think it was great. Now, I think in a very weird, like, parallel world type scenario, like if David Corn Sweet's version of, I almost said Spider-Man. Oh my gosh, so many S's. If his version of Superman is going to be the one that like continues on, I could see like a Cavill type Superman being injected into all of this if a situation calls for him to be that down and just in the dumps about something. Like I don't know if they, like, for example, right, crazy long shot, but if they do Doomsday, and he comes and he fights Doomsday and he dies and he is dead but not really, and he comes back with the black suit, I feel like that's probably the closest you could get to like the Cavalier of Superman. But I just hope they don't take it into the Injustice route, because that's literally like a parallel story, so we don't want parallel stories right now. We want at least what I would think most people would want is like main timeline Supermans and like the canonical Superman, and not these side stories that to the normative market you have to do a lot of research for and stuff like that. Like if they did do Injustice, I would obviously be able to track it because I'm familiar with the property, as are you, and most of the people that went to go see Superman for the comic book reasons. But I'm also trying to think of the normative market, because they are a large demographic, and they're moviegoers just like us. So I thought it was really cool. I thought Superman was a really good movie. Kindness is cool. Yes.
So I have gone very deep since we've tried to do this the first time, down the wormhole of gathering everybody's opinions and feelings and thoughts and whatever on this movie and weighing up the good and the bad and the fleshed out and whatever and all of that. You did say some interesting things, so I want to put a pin in that. But let me just say what I feel about the movie as itself. I watched it 3 times, so I've seen it more times since we did this the last time too. To really gather high five. I felt like it was good when we first did this. I think we had just seen it like the day before
Mm-hmm.
the when we tried to do this the first time, and then I've seen it a couple times since then. Every single time I've seen the movie, I never minded seeing the movie. Like I enjoyed myself watching the movie. I never felt like, even though I know it's gonna happen, like, oh man, and like I said to you the other day, I was like, yeah, it feels like it just goes by quicker, like every time I watched it since the first time. But if I could watch a movie 3 times in like what 2 weeks, yeah, if I could
Mm-hmm.
watch a movie like 3 times in 2 weeks, and not hate it or whatever, like that's a testament in and of itself. I think it's a fun movie. I think it's a movie that you could just turn on and just watch. And I think that uh, like I was saying to my mother yesterday, I think I reached the conclusion that it's kind of like if you're not willing to go into it with like an open mind, because I was getting ready to say it is definitely a movie catered to comic book fans, comic book Superman fans first,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also like there is no like established, this or that or whatever, so you don't have to worry about, watching other movies to tie in. I feel like you get more out of it if you know the characters from Superman, like if you know Jimmy Olsen, if you know Lois Lane, if you know Perry, if you know Lex Luthor, if you know like these other people, you'll get more from it. But I don't feel like it kind of makes you like lost if you don't know all of the
Yeah.
people. They
It's
kind of
kind of
like
like just
show
opening
you a
up a
bit.
book and starting from
Mm,
wherever and then
mm.
just going from there.
Yeah, which is very common. Which somebody was like, "This is very comic," because if you pop open a comic book, like comic books don't really like fully flesh out everything. They kind of just assume you kind of know. Like if you pick up like Superman 1, they'll touch on things briefly and then just get to the story. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if you pick up Batman 1, they'll touch on things and then get to the story. But they're not explaining like Crime Alley and I have to use Batman
You
because I
you know what
know.
it's
Oh, I mean,
like?
even Super. What?
It feels like when like TV shows have to put out a certain number of episodes to be able to run syndications without having to worry about making new stuff. So like obviously shows like Cat Dog, Rugrats, Rocco Modern's Life, like they have just those episodic thresholds where like they can just play episodes out of order because none of it is really connected outside of like characters' names and like where they live or wherever their shenanigans happen. But for something like Avatar, right, that's not really something that you'd want to play out of order because you kind of need to watch each episode preceding to then understand what's happening in the one that you're watching. So I feel like with comic books, it's kind of like that, where like there's enough of them out there in circulation where you could really start anywhere. But if you're reading a specific one with a particular writer or, um, I don't want to say Frank Miller because like he doesn't really do Superman all that well, but if you started with any Superman comic out there and just was like, okay, I don't know where to start. I'm gonna just grab the first one I see. I think you would be okay for the most part because there's just so much of it out there. And again, if anyone's really interested in it, I always think that they would do their due diligence and just, go forward or backwards with the material that already exists and where it's going. And then be like, oh, like I understand this aspect of him now, or I get why, he's from Krypton and why he says Great Row now instead of Great Scott, type of thing. But like every person's different obviously, but I'm trying to look at it from like a normative perspective because I know that just sometimes normative like people who engage with certain things will only consume so much and then just not care about it. There's people out there who don't know that like Streaky the cat was Kara's just as much as it was Crypto, but then in certain instances Crypto is like Superman's dog, but in this one it's Kara's
Mm-hmm.
because in most cases it is Kara's and Clark adopts it. But it's like we know that because we read a few books here and there. We've seen a good handful of the shows, the animated series, the spin-offs and all that. But like the normative market just doesn't engage with it like that. And sometimes it does make you wonder like it's like okay, so Hollywood is making wants to make a Superman movie and they are making a person who wants to give it to the fans, but Hollywood wants it to go to just whoever it can attach to. So sometimes I just think there's like this miscommunication or just wires crossed about who it's for, who it's going to, and then how it's gonna just gel with everybody. But I think that now that it's out there and it's made, you can always come back to it. And then obviously, people grow up and they change, and just life values and all that, perspective of shifts and stuff like that. So like they can always come back to it if 2025 wasn't it for them right then and there. So here's hoping. I think this movie will stand the test of time.
Absolutely. And I think that like they it's like a entry point into the medium of like Superman, but not like, it's not the beginner. So I mean, it's kind of like this is enough for you to like watch it, and you be like, you decide if you like this character, you want to find out more about this character, and then you can go dive into some of the other stuff he has to find out more about him and the other characters and stuff like that. But yeah, this movie was just trying to like tell the story it wanted to tell, which it did. And I think that I was watching somebody else do a review on it, and I was like, I kind of agreed with them, where I was like, I wish it did, like, if there was one complaint that I wish it did, like, take its time more to, like, develop certain things in certain people. This one was the, like, let's get it done, let's get it quick, let's, get to the next part.
Who wasn't developed in this movie that you think?
Well, let me see. So, Superman and Clark Kent, like, so pretty much what it is like a lot of the scenes just like go to the next scene and there's something else happening, and then it goes to the next scene and then something else is happening. And while that's fine, it's like sometimes you don't really get enough time to like really sit and digest. Because I mean, let's say for example, right, when I guess we're getting into spoilers. So spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, guys, if you haven't seen these by now, it's July 27th, and it's gonna be probably August 3rd or 2nd when this episode releases. So you better do your homework, right? You don't have to do homework for Marvel movies and DC movies, but you better do your homework for us. Like,
yeah, spoilers.
So yeah, we're going into spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 2.5, 1. Go for it.
So when Lex Luthor had Superman in the prison in the pocket dimension, and then he brings the guy who I think gave Superman the falafel or whatever that one time, and he's playing Russian roulette with him to try to get Superman to talk, and they're going back and forth with him, whatever, and then he bricks the first shot, and then he gets him on the second shot, and the Superman screams because he's partially like responsible for the innocent man dying or whatever. It's like that happens, but then once Lex leaves, it's like 3 more things happen, and we never really get to like address that and really push that and see. We see a bit of what that does to Superman, but it's like compiled with like 3 or 4 other things. So it's just like all of these things are weighing them down, but we don't know how that. Because I mean, that could be a significant kind of thingamagy. This Superman who we've seen go out of his way to save squirrels and dogs and a kid and all this other stuff, just had somebody die in front of him because he didn't want to give up information. So you would figure like that would weigh heavily on him, but we didn't really get to see that develop because then like Sleeves, he's being tortured by the thing. The what's the guy who transforms name? I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. The guy who did the kryptonite out of his hand.
I believe they said Elemental Man or Metamorphoso.
Metamorpho. Yeah, Metamorpho. So we seen him. I mean, we seen Superman scream and we seen Metamorpho cry because he didn't do anything about it. But then they're like, all right, well, if I let you out of here, you can get my kid. Yeah, I can get your kid. I need the sun though. Oh, I'll take away the kryptonite. Da 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 da. Well, why anything? Well, I need the sun. Okay, I'll make something like the sun. Okay, you kind of got your powers back. Go get my kid. It's his kid. His crypto. Now they're trying to get out of the thingamajiggy. Then they're trying to escape from the black hole. He blows to get out of the black hole. Pause. And then they come out, and then it's like, all right, there's more people in there. We got to get them. But no, Superman needs to recover because he needs time in the sun. So you see what I'm saying? Like everything is just moving like too fast. And then we get back. We take him back to Kansas, get him in the sun. He has that great conversation with Paul, where Paul is trying to just talk to Clark and give him that advice, and they have their moment. But then it's like, yo, Superman, rifts happening, and at the same time, so you see what I'm saying? Like, it just goes too fast, and I don't know because
what I found out. I do see what you're saying. I don't I didn't, when I was watching it, I didn't feel that way. I think there was enough of it happening for like each instances to be like, okay, I get what's motivating Superman to do the things that he's going to do, on top of his own desires to like obviously want to get out of this pocket dimension that Lex has. I do think that if they went too deep into, Superman and this one particular relationship he has with the vendor, obviously it would have been obvious. And I think when it comes to just movies in general, when people try to guess or anticipate what's going to happen before it happens, I think that takes away just the general interest of just watching it and seeing how it plays out. Like the whole, we'll get into this with Fantastic Four, but like obviously when it was just the trailers and talks about this movie happening, and everyone was just like, oh well, we already know what's going to happen, they're going to go into a different dimension and that's just going to be the end of it, right? Everyone was just so gung-ho on the idea that the Fantastic Four are going to just move to a different world and everything is going to be solved. Now clearly that didn't happen, right? But because that was like the rhetoric just going around, everyone just kind of went with that. And if it did happen, that wouldn't make the movie amazing. And if it didn't happen, it also wouldn't make the movie amazing. So I feel like media criticism, however media criticism is even defined, with people who call themselves critics but aren't really critics, or just fans who just happen to like talking about what they see, like what we do, right? I just felt that like, yeah, they established the relationship that Superman has with this vendor and how the vendor sees Superman through his eyes, and by proxy you can get a sense of like, well, this is how people generally view Superman. He's likable, he's humble, people want to go out of their way, out of their everyday shenanigans to help him out with something, because if you help one person, you help everyone. Right, so I got that. And if they focus too much on it, I could definitely feel like, okay, well, they're probably setting this guy up to die. The same way that they tried to do with Duncan in Rebirth, but they actually had test screenings where that wasn't the case. And they were like, well, let's shoot one where he dies in one, and let's shoot it where he lives. And the one where he lived, people really ended up liking that one, because Duncan was just like focused character, and it felt like, obviously he's acting, but there was just something about his performance that really made it feel like he was talking to you, or in this case like the characters in question. Very, very loyal to the kids, very protective of just the group in general. Like, even though he's a mercenary, if I was reading that right, he still felt like he was grounded with goals and motivations and desires to get to the island, to do what he needed to do, and then get off and then go about his life.
Yeah.
And now,
like a morally gray character.
Yeah. Now, I didn't think they were gonna kill the vendor off in like the first two shots, because usually in movies it's kind of like the rules of three, kind of like in video games where it's like you got to collect 3 things before you progress. So in this one, I'm thinking that, okay, on the third crack, something might save him, something might go off, but no, he does die by the second, and it's such a cutoff to like that emotional buildup that you do kind of feel like Superman, where it's just like, why did you do that? When that happened, it kind of reminded me of when Cavill snapped Zod's neck, and then he just screamed right after, because he was just like, dang, I really was in a rock and a hard place, and I had no out to that. And I felt that same emotion. I was just kind of like, dang, like that's kind of messed up, and then I don't know why I want to keep calling him Elemental Man, but I'm going to call him Elemental Man. Elemental Man crying right after. I don't know. Something about it just felt really like visceral, where it's just like, yeah, when tragedy does happen, and it's so visceral enough that it causes the next person down the road to like feel that as well. It's like yarning, right? If I yarned and then you yarn and then someone else yarns, it's just infectious. So again, how I was watching it and how each event was happening after the other, I could definitely feel like that pressure building up on Clark, and then getting to that last scene where he's just like, listen, sure, I can fly, I'm faster than a speeding bullet, but like none of that matters, because I still try to do the right thing in spite of all my powers and everything that I have going on for me. If it wasn't for the fact that he had Ma and Pa in his life as just wonderful influences, he would have turned out like Zod, he would have turned out like a Homelander, he would have turned out like an Omni-Man, or he'd be like the Injustice Superman, right? With no borders or boundaries or respect for just life at all. And the fact that he always chooses to do the right thing when not knowing what is right or what's wrong, I think that's cool for him. So when he has that last speech with Lex that just culminates into everything that he's went through up to that point, I'm just kind of like, yeah, like he got hit with a lot in a very short amount of time with little reaction time to it, but despite all that, he still chose to do the right thing and not shirk his responsibility.
Yeah, and he kind of does like show his naivete, which is why I don't subscribe to the whole thing where they're like, oh yeah, Superman has no no arc or no character development in this. I mean, I don't know. Does he? So I'm sorry.
I would say he
Does he have
does.
the arc like the Batman does in the Batman? No, but I mean, he does have like he's a developed character because he shows like he's strong, but he also holds back because he's trying to save, and then his naivete gets in the way. And they have a lot of instances where they point that out with the whole thing about Baravia and Lois calling him out on his actions, and other people kind of questioned then Superman's actions when Superman saw it as I was just trying to save people. They
Right.
was gonna, people were gonna die. They was going to, and yes, while that is the core foundation, yes, but you getting involved in that, you got to understand you Superman from America. Even though you're an alien, you're from America. You kind of represent America because you staked out Metropolis as like your territory. So Baravia is gonna see an American coming to interfere in their thingamajig, or the hero from America. And so while you know you didn't, and then you didn't even talk because there's two worlds here. There's the super people's world, and then there's the regular people's world. So in the regular people's world with military and whatever, that's a
Yeah.
international
And
kind of conflict.
unfortunately for Superman's
But
job, he
Superman
has to
doesn't know
placate to
this.
both.
He's not even, yeah, he's not even really like subscribing to that. So all Superman sees is people in trouble, I go save.
Yeah.
But and that's where
And that's
people
what
are like,
that's what makes Superman Superman, whether it's like naivete or like him actually just being like aware of what he's about to do. It's just kind of like at the end of the day, taking a life ain't right. And that's the
well,
last effect that presides over everything that came before it, and he operates off of that.
yeah, and it's a
and
good kind of naivety because
it's cool because
it
it puts him
appeals.
in very unique situations. It puts him in like a trolley problem situation, which is always like there's not a right or wrong answer to those type of questions, but it's like what are the sequence of events that you do to handle that for the least amount of casualties as possible, or pushback or flack. And obviously with it being in the social media age, I think they touched on that just a little bit, but it would make sense if it was in that world. And the fact that like that even gets to him to some extent, I was like, okay, that's cool. Like because Superman is always seen as like that guy who's just like a Boy Scout, and he's just so wholesome and good that if you did try to insult him, he just kind of goes, oh well, that's nice, and he just keeps it pushing. But like this actually gets to him because he cares. He's emotionally invested in the things that he does and the people that he saves, and he really does try to uphold the values of truth, justice, the American way, and a better tomorrow. So right. Yeah, I thought for a first movie it was pretty good. Now maybe, who knows, the sequel might be like a Spider-Man 2, right?
Possibly, but I mean, it's they had quite a few things here going on here, and stuff like that. So, no, I mean, like I said, I thought it was a fun movie. It's not too deep. It kind of reminds me of like Guardians 1. But it's not too deep. It touches on stuff just enough, but it doesn't, dig in too far. And you could kind of throw it on at any time, watch it. It's not gonna, hit you too hard or make you think too much or anything like that. But it's a fun movie. It's well defined, and it nails the character. It nails Superman, and the other characters surrounding Superman. So I was very pleased with it. I give that one a we can't do 0.5s. So
can't do fractions.
You know what? I'll be nice. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay,
I would
nice.
say 7 because I need, like I said, I wish it would have took its time a little bit more. Slow it down just a little bit more. But it wasn't bad enough. It's a great superhero movie. As a movie as a whole, it's not perfect. It has its problems, but it made me happy. It gives me the feeling when I leave the movie that a Superman movie I feel should give. I'm hopeful. I'm happy. I'm upbeat. The music is stuck in my head. Seeing Superman smile and be happy at the end, and you feel hopeful. And
I have to watch it again and pay attention to the music because, like, again, I don't really know James Gunn's style. Because I never seen Guardians of the Galaxy, to anyone who doesn't know. I did play the games, but I know that probably wasn't done by him, but it probably has that same essence. I'd probably have to listen to the music again. It's not every day that I listen to punk rock. Maybe a little grunge here and there, but like not too familiar with punk rock. I think I did like the last song that played when he was getting rejuvenated again from the sun at the
Yeah,
end
the
of the
one,
movie.
but I'm a punk rocker.
Yeah,
That
but
song's stuck in my
a
head
part of
now.
my mind was just
Terrific
kind of
scene
like,
is stuck in my head now. With the scene with Mr. Terrific, that song's stuck in my head now. So I mean, James Gunn with the music, he picked. And you know what's funny is both of those songs, both of them, right, are over 10 years old.
I believe it.
So they're old. They're old songs. James Gunn is really. I mean, it's baked in Peter Quill's character to like music from the 80s because he gets music from his mother and stuff like that. Like, so that's part of his character, just to like all the 80s pop music and rock music and whatever. That's part of his character. But James Gunn did a good job in picking the songs and whatever to display that, because in the comics they don't display that. You know what I mean? And his first time putting this on the screen and picking all those 80s hits to put out there, good job, James Gunn. That correlated into the game that you played with the 80s music in that game and stuff like that. 80s pop hits and rock hits and whatever.
That game was metal as heck.
Correlated well for Quill's character. And then with this one, it's like, yeah, that's why I leaned over to you when I said during the Terrific scene, I was like, yeah. I was like, when you watch the Guardians movies, I was like, you look back on this part and you'll be like, yep, this is definitely a James Gunn movie. So yeah, no, he did great. He did great with all of that. I give him an 8.
Nice. Well, I haven't gotten a chance to see Superman again, but in my first viewing of it, I also gave it a 9 out of 10, just like Jurassic World, even though I saw Jurassic World 3 times and you saw Superman 3 times. Look at that. I'm like Superman and he is like Batman. But I hope that when I get to see Superman again, my rating is still the same. I think it's going to be because it's such a feel-good movie. I just like it. I just like it. It's really, really good. Especially in these crazy times of everyone just being mad and upset at each other for putting real-world scenarios in this as well. It's just nice. It's a breath of fresh air. And I think it's still going to hold up even after it's out of the theaters and it's on DVD and Blu-ray and streaming and all that stuff. So yeah, Superman people, I think, are eating good. I would love to see how him and Batman like come together. I kind of hope they don't do a BVS thing so soon, because obviously the BVS that we got from Warner Brothers was supposed to, I think, be the Civil War, if we're comparing the two movies side by side. But like, I think what would really be good for a Superman Batman movie is either A World's Finest or Public Enemies. I think you could do a lot with those two. I think.
So
it depends on who's at the helm directing it.
It's gonna be Gunn again. So what a lot of people are saying, we can jump into that one, and I wanna circle back on your Injustice point too. But what a lot of people are saying is that right now they're trying to figure out a way to get Matt Reeves' Batman into this one, and I don't think it fits. They all are convinced and trying to convince that you can put Matt Reeves' Batman in this one because da 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 da. And I'm just like, no. Especially for the sense of fact that, so we agreed that this Superman kind of has like the all-star Superman kind of feel. I kind of feel like if they're gonna do a Batman, when he does his Batman, he kind of needs to go all-star Batman with that too, or Detective Comics Batman. And since he's starting with Batman and Robin, so his first movie is gonna be Batman and Robin. It's gonna be Damian too. So I mean, that's a pretty advanced Batman. I don't think that's a year 3 Batman, like, or anything like that. Or I think Matt Reeves' Batman is a year 2 Batman.
I think it'd be cool to see the two mixed though, because their styles are so like just opposite spectrums that's also kind of the fun of Superman and Batman. Like I think it was Justice League Doom. I might get the movies mixed up, but when Superman was shot with the kryptonite bullet, but his body is healing, and Bruce is trying to help him, and Superman is still just cracking jokes and just treating it like, hey, we're gonna be okay. And Batman's just like, hey, dude, like, just drop the sense of humor, and Clark's just like, well, do us a favor and buy one. It's just like, they're just so tonally opposite of each other that's what makes them cool. It's like a Goku and Vegeta, a Naruto and Sasuke, a Yusuke and a Hiei. It's like, if they put Matt Reeves in there, I think it already gives them like a 65% boost of just interest, but to be like, man, if you saw the Batman, you know how tonally different his world is compared to Superman's world, and then to see what they're like together. Because remember in the movies when we was watching it and everyone was evacuating and there was that Gotham City sign?
Yeah,
So
and that's what everybody's saying is, oh, that's the reason why the Batman's gonna be, and it's like,
okay, that's kind of silly. That's reaching. But again, if they did, because it's like it's either you do that, right? You already use what's established or what you have set up, or you have to figure out what Batman you're gonna get, and then as far as like the social consciousness is concerned, Matt Reeves's Batman is just gonna be like this separate, isolated, off in his own world type of thing, which is probably fine for most people. But I think what draws a lot of people to the Marvel formula is seeing these team ups get together, right? When we finished Fantastic Four, your mom's first question was, well, who's their backup? And it's like, it's not really about who they're backed up with, because they handle a lot of stuff on their own together. But obviously the draw of these movies is the team ups, is the combos, is these big culminations of the assemble.
My mother's a perfect example of what you would say, like the normative market has learned that like all of these movies lead into other movies. So now she's watching and trying to figure out like, well, what are they gonna do next, or who are they trying to call on next with thing, because that's what she's learned from these movies, is that's the way that they function. Now, when it comes back to DC and how they're gonna do it, I think that Matt Reeves' Batman, though it was sad originally, but seeing the Superman and Matt Reeves' Batman, I think it's best to keep Matt Reeves' Batman in like an Elseworld, so that you can sometimes in between your collaborative movies, you can do these little Elseworld stories, a little story-like features of these movies, kind of like how the animated movies did.
Yeah, but the animated movies get a different rap of just all types of...
They get more freedom, and they get more thingamajiggy. But I mean, if you wanted to think, like, if you're in the middle of taking a break and you're not quite ready to do the Justice League, or if you did a Justice League, but you want to give a different kind of perspective, you can do this. Yo, you want to get together and let's do this. Let's do this Injustice thing, because Injustice is a Elseworld thingamajiggy anyway. So it's like, you want to get together and do this Injustice movie, give them a different take on Superman, sure. And then if you want to, then you could do that like that, where everything goes wrong that one time, and so on and so forth, and you're like, yeah, and you still
but I think with Injustice though, it's a little different, because like Injustice is like, it's like a committed side story. Like you can't really throw other things in there. I think when the comics were originally running, it was like 5 years that book was going on.
Yeah, it's 5 years. But they can't. That's why the animated movie failed the way it did, because you're not gonna be able to do 5 years of comics and then the game all in one movie. You're not gonna be able to do
I would say I think 2 games was fine. 3 movies for sure, but you could have done 2-hour movies. And again, because it's animated, they probably don't have the same like or they're not probably beholden to the same restrictions as like big blockbuster movie type of restrictions. So like, again, they could have made it work. If I really squinted, I would be like, yeah, Injustice was fine, but like, again, I remember watching that movie with my dad and I was just kind of like, yeah, that was fine. Once they had Mr. Terrific in there and he was like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm working on multi-dimensional like figurines. And I'm like, oh, that's something he would say, that's something he would do. But the fact that he's just doing this on a random Wednesday, you kind of know that the twist is going to be, let's get another Superman from another world who's going to have to deal with this, which is kind of funny from the Superman Prime's perspective, to be like, oh, what? I'm beating another version of myself? Okay, yeah, sure, I guess I'll help. But I did like the games better just for the interactive element of it. The story was really fun, and I think the acting was pretty good too, and a lot of the voice work. I don't remember if Andrea Romero was on that, but if she was, great casting for a lot of those characters in it. But Injustice is such a dedicated side story that if they tried to do that to Superman 2025, it's like you either have to commit to it in its own separate arc, or break it up into 2 movies and put it in Superman 2, Superman 3, because trying to do it like all in one shot, it never seems to work. Sometimes I think it gets into this case of like, just again, like I said earlier, wires crossing, where like the director knows that they want to do this for the fans. The director knows the material. The director knows what they want to do with this IP. But then the studio goes, well, we actually want you to do it like this because we think this will pull in more money right now and in the long run. and now they have to kind of work in the middle and figure out how the best thing can be made. And then sometimes Hollywood gets it where they're like, okay, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to do the third, and then we're going to hire this person for it because we looked at their resume and we think that they've got it down packed. And then you're looking at their resume and it's just like, well, they only done like maybe one movie, The Hangover, and now this. So are they really the right person for it because of directorial reasons, or because they're not really going to push back because you asked for this? And then you get into the whole audiences once they come and see the movie. But yeah, Superman 2025 was a solid hit.
Studio agendas is studio agendas is one thing, but yeah, no, I mean, you know, the people who like, that's why, you know, Matt Reeves went in there and said, listen, I'm gonna do this like this. And, you know, he's got the backing of the people because he dared to go in there and do what he wanted to do. He respected the source material. And he said, listen, I have a plan. You know, trust me. And then, you know, the fans trust him because he seems to, you know, confidently and confidently know what he's doing. I trust Gunn so far because, you know, he stepped out with this one. It was like I told you going in. I was like, man, I'm really interested to see how he pulls this off with, you know, dropping you dead in the middle of a Superman story with all of his characters and all of his supporting thing already, you know, established and this and that and whatever. And he did good with it. So I was like, all right, you got my attention, you got my support. Let's see what you do with the rest of the universe or with the rest of these characters and so on and so forth. Because I mean, I don't watch Peacemaker. I didn't watch his other animated show. I didn't really like the Suicide Squad. So I mean, none of this. He only had me for like Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, yeah, I know you could do the Guardians, but you know, doing DC and trying to revive this, and you know, you having all these thingamajiggies. Granted, he had help of the Batman being well, but still, Superman fans are looking at him like the last point of reference we have is Man of Steel, which is a very what is the word I'm looking for? Is a very controversial take on Superman. Either people loved it or either people hate it. So he came in, but no, I feel like he did well. And he knocked it out so far. So yeah, no, we'll see where he goes with it.
Cool. So you give it an 8 out of 10. I give it a 9 out of 10. We've had our takes, we've had our opinions. So yeah, I would say it was pretty super, man.
So Fantastic Four now.
Fantastic Four.
In the spirit of things, I'm going to be brief. I'm going to be short and simple.
We're at 48 minutes.
I give Fantastic Four a 4 out of 10. All right, you go.
No, you got to give it a 4 out of 4. You got to give it a 4 out of 4.
I got to give it a 4 out of 10. I
got to give it a 4 out of 4. Bow. Yeah, that movie was so good.
I can do like my aunt said. I could give it a 5 since they had, you know, the 5.
Gotta get the little junior in there. Get a little tyke. Yeah, that movie was cool. That movie reminded me so much of Spider-Man 2. And I don't know what number in like the Marvel lineup of movies this one falls under. And I don't know what phase they're on because I don't know. I stopped looking at it as phases after Endgame because, again, I will always say this, that felt like the best spot for me to stop. But now, obviously, since they're still making more of these, I do dip my head in it every now and then to see what's going on and all that jazz. So I guess I'll start with this since you took over Jurassic World and Superman. I'll give you a break. Movie was awesome. I said it to Money yesterday. It felt like a movie about two people becoming parents and dealing with the potential hoops and hurdles and struggles that come with preparing to have a kid in a world that is, you know, supernatural. They got mole men who have you seen The Incredibles?
I haven't. I need to watch it.
You haven't seen The Incredibles? Oh my gosh. I can't even spoil it then. Okay, well, there was this character that reminded me of the Mole Man, and I kind of chuckled because obviously Disney owns Marvel / Pixar, so they're probably just using the same like DNA and bones of that character. So when I saw the Mole Man mentioned, I was just like, oh, deep cut, you know, reference for comic books and stuff like that with the Fantastic Four. That's another thing I like too. It's obviously it's like you know, realistic as far as these comics can go, but it's comic book realism. Like they're embracing the silliness of the comic books, and it doesn't feel like they're embarrassed about it. That's just the vibe I got from Fantastic Four. Just they felt very proud and confident that like, yeah, these are, you know, characters from this world, these books that we are going to embrace. And I thought that was cool. But then I saw the Mole Man. I was just like, behold, the Underminer from The Incredibles. But yeah, no, this, oh man, the movie was so cool. I wish I could see it again this week, but I might not be able to fit it in. But yeah, it was really good. And I was getting a little glassy eyed towards the end because like, man, they just let that, man, is she gonna make it just a bit longer than what I'm used to seeing in movies? And I was just like, oh man, they're not going to, but if they did, how would they do it? You know, everything felt like, okay, they're in a situation. How are they going to get out of it? And if they get out of it, does it feel logical for the sake of these characters? And I think, especially with Reed, I think he walked that fine line of just like, yeah, he is. I think he's got charisma in this. I think he's got a bit of charm, but like, what makes Reed so dangerous sometimes is that he's kind of like Tony Stark, except he, like he said in the movie, he will have to think about the harder things so it doesn't happen. And it's like it's kind of like Minority Report and another movie that tries to predict something before it happens, but I'm drawing a blank on it. But the fact that he has to be the one to do or think of the bad things so they don't happen feels like such a heavy burden to hold, you know. And then when that comes into question of whether that might involve the kid or not, it's just like that opens up an even bigger can of worms and layers of just like, we know why you want to do it, but does that still make it right, you know? And I thought it was cool. Sue was great, Reed was great. I like that they didn't make Johnny dumb, but he was still a womanizer, and they didn't play it up too much, but it was still there. And him being like a big component to actually like, you know, figure out one of the key points to at least building communication with the Silver Surfer Herald. And I thought that was cool. And then the thing is just like, he's like, oh man, he reminds me of it's not Frankenstein. Maybe it's Elephant Man I'm thinking of, which is like this super duper old movie. But like, it's like he's ugly on the outside, right? That's supposed to be the general, like, here's what you can view from this character. He's supposed to be ugly on the outside, but on the inside he has a heart of gold. And he's like the heart for like this entire family. And he gets it across really well. I like it. I like it. Their dynamic was pretty terrific.
You might even say it was fantastic.
Fantastic Four. Dude, I love their theme so much. Michael Giacchino, or I'm just gonna call him Mike G, he is a unit. That dude is a unit when it comes to composing music. He had that, he had the Batman, he had the Incredibles, he did the Jurassic World trilogy. Like, oh man, he knocked it out of the park with their particular theme. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the OG Avengers theme. Like when you hear it, you just know something's about to start up and something's about to go down. When you hear that dun 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 dun, you're like, oh, like it just brings so much memories back from like 2012, you know. And when I hear their theme, I'm just like, man, that really works. It just scratches the brain in the right way. So yeah, his musical composing skills, fantastic. Okay, you can go ahead now.
Yeah, no, like I said, I don't really have much to say about Fantastic Four either. Well, I mean, you know,
don't you dare.
It's not really my thingamajig. I think I watched one of their movies back in the day. Okay. And I watched the cartoons a little bit, but I mean, you know, never really my jam. Again, I am more of the DC guy. I cross lines sometimes, but you know, crossing lines for Fantastic Four is not really, you know, thing for me. But no, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was like, you know, like Jurassic World to me. It was okay. It was fine. It hit all the notes that it needed to. This one I will say though, because I was with my homegirl today and she was asking me about it, and she said, you know, would you recommend it? Does it have a lot of action in it and whatever? And I said, no, I feel like this one is more about the characters. It's more of a character story, which
when people say action, do they mean like people like just fighting or like things happening on screen? Not to cut you off, but when people say that, I just like, did we not watch the same movie?
I mean, depending on the person, what they're asking for. Like me, I always ask, like, is it pointless action? Like, a fight's happening just to happen? Is people dying just to die, or explosions going on just because they're trying to do a thing or whatever? Or is there a reason? Is there a build up to this? Is these things happening for a reason? I would assume because she's more the type to, like, she likes things happening on the screen, and she's talking about like things happening, and in a sense she's also talking about like fight sequences and that type of stuff. So I told her, like, don't go into, like, like kung fu movies back in the day where people was just fighting to show off the martial arts and whatever, and the plot was very thin or weak, or if you searched for it hard enough, it was there. But if you're not searching for it, you're not gonna find it. It wasn't like a action heavy movie in the terms of, like, fight sequences, and so they had a few in this one, but I feel like it's more focused on, who are these characters? Who are the Fantastic Four? How are they going to deal with this situation of, bringing a child into this world, and coping with, their powers and their situation, and coping with, their responsibilities, and then is coping with, the fact that Galactus wants to, eat their world, and gives them their ultimatum, and so on and so forth. So, it's more about what is going on with the characters, how they're feeling, how they're developing, this and that, and whatever, who they are, than it is about the action, and, them just, doing stuff, or whatever the case may be. It's more about who they are than what they do. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
I
It
feel like
is
if you
about what
like
they do as
if you like
well.
the characters, then the action will be pretty substantial because you want to make sure that these characters are okay and get through it. Like when she was going through birth, I'm like, dang, I'm not a mom, but that must be the worst time to be having it. I feel like this is a movie that moms would definitely appreciate.
Yeah, well, that's why I told her I recommended it for her, and I was like, I think that you'll think, but it's kind of like, like, let me see. Well, I don't really have much in terms of reference, but it's kind of like, it would be like if in Batman, it's like, all right, well, are they focusing on how these things happen between uh, you know, Batman and Bruce Wayne, and what effects this has on his psyche, and what effects this has on his person, and this, that, and whatever? Or are they just focused on Batman is just kicking everybody's behind, and he's doing all the stuff, and he's using all the gadgets, and here's a chase sequence, and then here's a fight sequence, and here's a this, and here's a that, instead of, like, with the Batman, there was a fine balance in, like, detective scenes, figuring things out, talking to people, this, that, and the third, and then going to get some fights, and then going, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it strikes the balance well. I feel like Fantastic Four leans more, and, like, me personally, I feel like it leans more in the character development, but it does have some action in it. It's not a boring movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like it focuses more on, like, what's going on behind the scenes, how these people feel. Like Johnny trying to show that he can do more than just show up and use his powers and this and that or whatever. He had an arc where he's developing his person. He's ready to make the sacrifice, and he's figuring things, showing that he can also figure things out too. And it doesn't always have to be up to Reed to figure everything out and this and that or whatever. And then um, what's the rock dude's name?
Ben.
Thing
Yes,
or
the
Ben?
Thing,
Yeah.
or you can call him Ben.
Yeah, Ben. So Ben, it's about how he's coping with his thing, and also how where he fits in with the family, and then Sue and Reed with their parental situations, and that, and trying to deal with what's going to happen to Earth, and so on. So it does a good job in building up to its action moments, but it has a lot of build up to its action moments in comparison to, like, Superman, where it's just like something happens, we get some action, and we get some more action, then something happens, and then we get some more action, and then, you know what I'm saying? So it's like Fantastic Four kind of has the pacing that I wish that Superman had, but it's it's fine. It worked in its own regard. It's fine in its own regard. I liked Fantastic Four. Um, yeah, and I was joking around about the four. It's better than a four. Four is a bad movie. If I had to give it a if I had to give it a rating, I give it a 7. It's a good solid summer blockbuster Fantastic Four movie.
It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
No, I'm not gonna. I'm I'm a one no type of person. I'm not gonna do it 2-3 times.
I will. It's great.
It was.
It's just
fun.
weird how like obviously the failure of one movie can come back to be relevant but be repurposed for something completely different. That is the beauty but also the scary danger of the internet.
Well, that because Fantastic Four, Fantastic Four, like in the '90s, you got to give it grace in the early 2000s because it didn't really find its footing. Now superhero movies have like the foothold to really kind of develop themselves and
well,
take
I think you can also thank Marvel for that because, like I was saying earlier, Marvel, or at least it feels like Marvel's not ashamed to just embrace those comic book roots. But like, if I think I've only seen the Fantastic Four 2005, I think it came out, and Rise of the Silver Surfer. I did like Rise of the Silver Surfer more than the first one, but Fox just doesn't like they just don't embrace the roots. It feels like they're embarrassed or they think they're cringe before that word was even a thing in those times. To be like, yeah, these are comic book characters and they have situations where yeah, there is a man floating out in the stratosphere of space that eats planets, but we're gonna make him a cloud because we think him standing up with a helmet hat with horns is too silly for our movies. We need them to be mature and an adult. Meanwhile, you got a heartthrob who disappears, a rock guy, a stretchy man, and a fire guy. Like, Fox, we're so past the idea of realism. Just go in all on it, I think X-Men was a little bit better, but like even then they were just kind of like, let's try to keep it a bit more grounded, whatever that means. So yeah, this one was pretty good. I'd probably need to watch FANTASTIC again because that movie just felt so like, I don't know. It just felt like
I got to the digging behind that movie too, so I'll keep this brief so that we can wrap. But it was pretty much like the guy that they brought in there for that one kind of wanted to make like a character. He kind of wanted to like he wanted to do what he wanted to do with the characters.
Yeah,
in the movie.
we want to deconstruct them. We want to ask those questions, but yeah, it's like, are those questions that you're asking interesting? Are the situations that you're putting the characters in interesting, right? You can deconstruct anything, right? But if you're not purporting it to like an interesting hypothesis or a thesis, it's just like, yeah, you just took a character apart to take them apart, And I like, for example, right? I think Superman works as well as he does, right? Because he's been around since the 30s. He's timeless, so you can put him in different situations because his moral compass is always going to be interesting based off of what it's going up against. What would Superman do in the Vietnam War? What would Superman do against the Nazis? What would Superman do against the Ku Klux Klan? Things like that. But when you're taking a character and you're like, well, I just want to break them down and deconstruct them, right? You're hitting all the media buzzwords, but it's like when you actually see it on the film, you're just kind of like, I see you doing it, but it's not really grabbing me, And it's weird because I know Miles Teller has range like that. I think he's a slept-on actor, but he's pretty good. But unfortunately, when you're on the hands or you're at the helm of a director who, might be able to portray something that they want to show, or they have the idea in their head and it's beautiful and it's amazing, but then when it comes to executing it, it's not all there. It's just like, I think Zack could have done something really well because he did it with Watchmen. But that doesn't work for every single thing in DC.
Yeah, right? you gotta put them in their wheelhouse. So if Watchmen is a deconstruction of superheroes, and you put a guy who thinks superheroes are lame on that project, that's the right match. But if you say, hey, guy who thinks superheroes are lame and corny and cheesy, can you make a movie that's gonna like sell these superheroes? No, that's a horrible match because even he doesn't think so. So how is he gonna do that? And then he made his name off of deconstructing the superheroes. So it's like it was a bad idea, and all WB saw, and this goes back into like studio interfering. All WB saw was dollar sign. Hey, the guy made money with 300 and Watchmen. Let's bring him in here to have him do our Superman and our DCU.
Well, I think that's also because of the Dark Knight movies. So, wait, Batman Begins was the first one, right?
Too.
and then The Dark Knight was the one that really knocked it out of the park.
So
I think Warner Brothers saw that.
It's the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah,
and yeah,
so they were like,
signed him on to do.
Yeah, let's do that, but with Superman. And again, that could work. But when you're saying that it's going to be the mainline continuity Superman, or this is going to be the one that we follow because this is the most definitive take on the character, that's probably not going to work all that well. But then when you have 10 years of just, feeding people The Dark Knight or movies like it, and then here comes Superman, of course people are going to have a misconstrued aspect of the character because, like, that's not who he is, I don't even think my dad likes that version of Superman because he knows that's not Superman. I mean, I'm not saying that he wants Superman to be all, naivete and, being with the birds and the bees and the coconut trees, but, like, he knows that Superman just isn't all fists and muscles, And I felt like when it came to that one, right Superman, wrong director. But if you're going off of just the aesthetics, Superman is yes, he's muscle bound and he's tall and he's chiseled and sharp jawline, stuff like that, but he's more than just his looks. And the people that like the Cavill Superman, I think, like him just for Cavill, right? It's not wrong.
He looks cool and the actor is good.
But when it comes to, like, being the actual character, no, he's not Superman. He's misdirected by someone who doesn't understand the character. Now, if by some point in the future Henry Cavill gets a chance to actually do Superman and has, like, full dictatorial reigns, then we might get something really good out of that. But until that happens, and when that happens, he struck and he missed. All right, back to the bench. I think David is a good middle ground Superman to start, where he's a little naive. He does feel a little wet behind the ears. I don't know how long he's been Supermaning. Could be 2 years, could be 3 years, because I definitely felt like he was still green in certain aspects. But as he grows into his I think that he could probably get to those levels of where Cavill was in certain dark places mentally. Like, not to say, like, he was a Christ figure or anything, but, like, the situations that they put him in, it was just kind of like, if Superman steps out of line, everyone's dying, And if he stays in line, people still die. So it's like, whose fault is that?
It's the kind of Superman that proves Bruce's point. So Bruce came in, like, it's like, yeah, this dude is a threat. He's definitely a threat. But I mean, the only problem with that was Bruce is over here branding people to get shanked in prison. So I mean, it's not really like, what right do you have to worry about this dude? He
doesn't, because even though these two are superheroes in their own right, what makes each one different is that Bruce took a very tragic accident in his life and then galvanized vengeance. Superman, losing his people, even before he could really recognize what was going on in the situation, because he was still a baby, was able to find family, find friends, find love, and still, continue to do the right thing. I think their foundations are what set them up on the path that they do. And it makes them, it's not about who's better than the other, right? Because I know that's how people will boil them down to. But it's not about who's better. It's about what are they working with, and then what are they working against. Batman is literally trying to save Gotham, and Gotham is a lost cause. That city is compromised. Superman is kind of in the same way, except it's on the world scale. He's a friend to everyone. I think it was in Superman 1 or 2 where, like, he saved this girl's cat and he gives it to her, and she's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "A friend." And away he goes. It's like, that's Superman. Batman, it's, "Who are you?" "I'm vengeance." It's like, or "I am the Knight. I am Batman." That whole thing. It's their fundamentals that make their roads interesting. And unfortunately, Zack had the keys to the kingdom. And he just kind of blew it, because he thought, oh, it worked with Watchmen. They're liking where the Nolan trilogies went. Let's try it again with this. But you cross a few lines when he's branding people, or he's using guns, or he's blowing up cars and they're flipping over and barrel rolling. That's spinal injury. That's whiplash. That's not Batman. So who knows? Who knows? I think for this take, it was a pretty good Superman, and I would love to see what they do with Batman if they decide to keep Gunn on this track, because Superman and Batman are like the anchors of the DC. I'm spitting so much facts, the police are outside ready to haul me. Come on, you know what time it is. I'm ready to go. Superman, save me. Superman.
He's on track to do the one next year, so we'll see how it goes. So all right, that's the three that we seen for the summer.
Bow. Nice.
So all in all, a good summer for movies.
I would say a good summer for movies. I do need to see one more movie. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Primitive War. It's literally a movie about Vietnam soldiers going to save someone, and they just happen to be on an island that has dinosaurs on it. And obviously, I love dinosaurs, but as I said in another video, dinosaur movies can be broken up into two categories: before and after Jurassic Park. So, other than Conator, which I think came out either the same year but a few months behind Jurassic Park, we need more dinosaur movies that aren't Jurassic Park. So I want to see Primitive War at some point. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget. Primitive War, and I want to see what the hubbub was about, because I like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are legit. But yeah, this was a pretty good summer for movies. I don't think we've had a block this busted since Oppenheimer and Barbie, no?
Barbieheimer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They did call it that, huh? I have become death. The structure of worlds. Hi, Barbie.
I agree. It was a pretty good summer for the movies. But no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all of them. It was good. No duds. And then, a couple of good ones leading into them. So yeah, no, all in all, it's been thing. I mean, I'm still waiting for that movie that, just has me leaving the studio. Like, well, I guess suppose I could say surprisingly with Superman, since it made me think I gotta go see Fantastic Four again on Tuesday, I believe.
Okay.
And thing, but yeah, no, I think it was pretty good. Couple, nothing bad, but pretty good. And I take it. I think if we keep going in this direction.
I just hope Clayface doesn't throw it all off the tracks.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what that's about. But
if that's the case, let's get a Killer Croc movie.
another time, another day. All right, brother, take us home.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, here we go. At 1 hour and 13 minutes and 32 seconds, I counted it. Okay, the Bible said it was late in the night. And y'all gotta take a deep breath. Say it with me. Stay happy, stay healthy. Please don't do anything we wouldn't do except be fantastic. But always keep on being creative and going seeing movies that you like and giving them a chance. I have been Marcell.
This is Money Green.
And you guys are fantastic. Say that again. And we'll see you guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Enough from the crowd.
Take care, good day, and God bless. Bye. Fantastic Four.